Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Can I make you some questions about an actual conflict in Latin America?
Yes, of course, I'll be glad to answer your questions.
I'm going to ask you about the political crisis in Venezuela. So, first of all, are you well informed on the actual situation of Venezuela?
Well, I can say that I'm very interested in politics in Latin America and the relevant news in the world. But I can tell you that just a few persons can be very well informed because one of the main problems is that the current government in Venezuela are taking a rigid control over the media. I can say that I read about that crisis. I see some TV shows about it, and I've been watching announcements done by citizens and by social groups, especially through Facebook or YouTube or other not formal media.
Okay, so as you may know, Nicolás Maduro is the new president of Venezuela after the death of Hugo Chavez. What do you think about Maduro's new decision?
Well, right now, Maduro is softening his position with the opposition because he discovered the riots and the violence that arose in Venezuela due to repression, disagreement, were causing very bad reputation around the world, not only in Latin America but around the world. So now the softening is not probably a movement toward democracy, but just a tactical political decision. In brief, I will say that it's good for the population of Venezuela that Maduro is being more reluctant to use violence. But I don't think it is a real solution for more democracy and more freedom for those citizens in that country.
So, even though he says he's fighting corruption, he's known for actually committing it. Do you think this is correct?
Well, I think we can suppose that he's committing acts of corruption. Not only he, but probably many of the members of the government. This is not a great story. We know that politicians in different parts of the world, even in very well-developed countries, are suspected to be corrupt. But I think there's no solid evidence. I think we can infer, we can suppose, and one of the strategies in a politician, especially if it is corrupt, he or she is corrupt, some statement or even action that seem to be representing the opposite, which is fighting corruption just to cover his or her own regarding honesty.
You, as a fellow Latin American, do you think other countries around Venezuela could be affected?
Of course, and let me tell you, I think Venezuela is so important regarding oil and products derived from oil that instability of the government and an economical crisis of the country in general, I think can affect primarily their own citizens. We know that inflation has been a problem for citizens, and from other perspective, countries that are receiving benefits from Venezuela, Argentina, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Cuba, the more affected is Venezuela, the greater the negative effects on those countries.
And well, certainly this will affect the future of Venezuela, but in what way do you think this will affect the country?
Well, I think regarding future, let me tell you that many persons think that the country has been already affected due to a deep division regarding the cosmovision or the values or the vision of the country. Those supporters of Chavez and now the resulting supporters to Maduro are very conflicting their visions as compared to the visions or the aspirations of the oppositors. So one of the future negative consequences of the current situation of Venezuela is to enlarge or enhance the division among persons. So this is one. Another one is the crisis in Venezuela will affect the poorest population of Venezuela, and of course the layer of the middle class will also be very affected. It will be probably disappearing due to the loss of economical capacity. And as a country, Venezuela probably will become in a weaker nation due to the loss of transparency, loss of democracy, and probably the very, very criticized ways to understand common rights for persons.
If a situation like Venezuela's happened here in Mexico, what would your position be towards the government?
I believe that in Mexico we're facing serious troubles regarding illegal actions of some groups in different parts of the country. I believe that in general the federal government, the federal institutions are stronger with the time, and probably state governments and probably municipal governments are probably more proclived to corruption and problems similar to Venezuela. I think that a problem similar to Venezuela is hard to happen in Mexico due to the more solid institutions. But of course, my position would be against any change that would affect democracy and transparency and basic rights for human beings.
Okay, thank you for your time and your opinion.
Thank you for being interested in my opinions. Bye bye.